Hello, I'm Jacob Rascone, and you're watching KHOU 11+. It's been 1 year now since the Derecho came barreling down 290 and tearing through downtown. Hard to believe it was a first for Houstonians. We're going to begin with meteorologist Kim Castro taking a look back at that historic day, from the forecast to the impact and, of course, its aftermath.
Hurricanes, floods, severe thunderstorms with hail and tornadoes. None of that raises an eyebrow in Houston, Texas. Well, on May 16, 2024, something was off. These storms grew stronger, more powerful than we'd seen before. And downtown became ground zero for a violent windstorm we now call a derecho.
Destructive winds.
Windows blown out. Across downtown.
That day started like any other for the KHOU 11 weather team. Yeah, maybe it squeezes out something right there. Chief Meteorologist David Paul and I checked the models. The atmosphere was extremely unstable, and the Storm Prediction Center hiked up our severe risk from a level 2 to a level 3.
We officially became nervous when we saw that the morning of the derecho.
So we watched radar closely, and pretty soon, in astonishment.
I remember you spotted it. The velocities were up, and we were seeing velocities above the surface of 100 miles an hour.
It was kind of scary to watch it.
And at that point, I could see the alarm bells go off above your head and above my head, and we jumped on the air.
And I think that whole batch is going to end up coming across the heart of Houston and Harris County.
From that initial warning, the storm moved fast.
Seek shelter immediately.
Inside an interior room.
Felt like everyone was in its path.
In the Katy area by 5:55.
This is racing in right towards Spring Valley.
As the storm neared the heart of the city,
It's the bottom of the hour. We're 6:30. We're in continuing team coverage.
we had 3 meteorologists on the air.
Close to 80 to 90 mile an hour winds.
That is going to do some damage.
And I'll never forget when the storm winds hit our station here on Westheimer.
The amount of force that's propelling that rain to move sideways.
I think it was 30, 40 minutes of winds blowing, howling.
Just bending the trees.
We were actively getting reports of what was happening as it was happening, and it just didn't seem to stop.
Now we're up to 350,000 being reported without power. That number is going to go higher. We're going to have 1 million people without power.
And David was right. A total of 1 million customers lost power that night.
At that point, you kind of get a feeling in the pit of your stomach like we're going to have a lot of damage and people could lose lives.
There was 1.2 billion in damages, and the most shocking number of all, 8. That's the number of people that lost their lives.
Heart of downtown during rush hour. It was really a worst case scenario.
Meteorologist Dan Riley spent 32 years with the National Weather Service. He had seen this damage before in other parts of the country, but never in Houston. And when he surveyed the damage the next day,
Big portions of roofs were gone. There were shattered windows. There was a lot of debris scattered everywhere. That thing tracked on the ground for off and on hundreds of miles.
because it went on for at least 240 miles with 58-mile-an-hour winds or greater, this was a derecho. A lot of people had never heard that word before. It gets its origin from the Spanish word straight. How does that play into what it actually does?
Yeah, that's interesting. The storm shape itself is sort of more of a straight line, and it also tracks in a straight path.
Along its path, the survey team determined the derecho spit out 3 tornadoes, 2 in Cypress and 1 in Waller County.
I remember that day very well, being here with everything damaged. There were trees down here and there from the straight line, but this little stretch here was an EF1 tornado.
Whether you were here in Cypress or in Spring Branch,
Police tell me this is the worst hit spot they have seen in Spring Branch.
even downtown,
Take a look behind me. This is an old masonry building.
we all felt this one.
It could be 100-mile-per-hour straight line winds or 100-mile-per-hour rotating winds, and it doesn't matter. It's still going to cause the same type of damage. When people went through it, it kind of surprised them. They hadn't seen it before. Just like a Hurricane Harvey, which was unprecedented. Those things make a big impact on people.
1 year later and life goes on. It's business as usual here downtown, but there is this extra level of weather awareness. You can feel it because here in Houston, just about anything goes. I'm meteorologist Kim Castro, KHOU 11 News.
Kim, thanks. When disasters like the derecho strike, help from FEMA, we know, can take time. However, the Greater Houston Disaster Alliance tries to act immediately as a philanthropic first responder, getting funds to those with the highest needs much faster. a solution to a problem in disaster-prone spots like the Gulf Coast. Victor Jacobo now with the group's impact after the storm.
It was scary.
These pictures show the destruction of Carolyn Callahan's home in Spring that she and her husband had lived in for half a century. Last year's derecho, so powerful, it sets a tree right into their home.
Everything was wet because it was a great big old hole in the roof.
Fortunately, no one was home at the time, but the Callahans, like many in the Houston area, faced a long road to recovery.
I thought, well, what are we going to do now? What happens now? We've never been through anything like this. We've never had any kind of destruction like that.
Long-term recovery help to rebuild the home would come later from agencies like FEMA, but thousands like Carolyn received immediate help from the Derecho Recovery Fund.
We didn't expect results that fast.
We're able to get together and make some decisions about standing up a fund pretty quickly.
Amanda McMillan is president and CEO of United Way of Greater Houston, and Steve Maislin is the president and CEO of the Greater Houston Community Foundation. Together, they help lead the Greater Houston Disaster Alliance, started in 2023.
We really try to be the philanthropic first responders, and we are trying to fill the gaps that FEMA and the SBA, the Small Business Administration, might not be able to fill.
In total, the Derecho Disaster Fund raised $3.1 million, supporting 6,400 people in 2,000 families. That help includes financial assistance, resource navigation, and home repair.
It's critical that that gets out there immediately, and it really helps mitigate the damage by getting it out there so quickly.
McMillan and Maislin say having a one-stop shop for donations gets dollars in and out to those who need it faster.
When you have no power and no food and your roof has just gotten blown off, we've got to get help to our neighbors who need it as quickly as possible. And to be able to do that in a matter of days as opposed to weeks or months is a game changer.
In Houston, Victor Jacobo, KHOU 11 News.
Speaking of the damage, the derecho led to an unexpected, eye-opening discovery. New research shows the derecho caused more damage, noticeably, to downtown skyscrapers than even Hurricane Beryl, even though both storms had nearly identical wind speeds. Here's meteorologist Pat Kavlin.
When the derecho slammed Houston a year ago, we saw countless scenes of destruction. And one of the most intense areas of damage was right in downtown, where wind gusts topped 90 miles per hour, shattering thousands of windows across 18 high-rise buildings. Remarkably, that was more destruction than what Hurricane Beryl unleashed just 2 months later, despite similar wind speeds. Researchers now believe that the type of wind matters just as much as the speed.
It's like force it to move in a narrower channel. So it accelerates, or it causes like more suctions on the building or more pressures on the building, causing more damage.
Florida International University doctoral student Omar Metwali, the lead author on the new study, says that downbursts like the ones in the derecho create impulsive, concentrated winds that interact differently with tall buildings compared to the steady winds from hurricanes. Metwali and his team used one of the world's largest wind tunnels, the Wall of Wind, to simulate how downbursts strike skyscrapers.
The Wall of Wind is a pretty fascinating facility. It has a wall of 12 fans. We can generate hurricane winds up to category 4B, which is like 150 miles per hour.
It turns out that in dense areas, these downbursts don't just hit buildings, they ricochet between them, accelerating and amplifying pressure. Currently, building codes for skyscrapers account for hurricane and tornado winds, but not for downbursts. Metwali's team says better understanding these storms could help engineers design safer skyscrapers, not just in Houston, but across America. In all, there were 3,000 windows damaged in downtown Houston last year. Repairs at some of these buildings are still ongoing. Back to you.
Pat, thank you. The derecho is a day that many of us will never forget, and that's true more for some than others. Trace and Bragg returned to some of the hardest hit areas to learn how the storm truly changed some people's lives.
Today marks a year since the derecho hit our area, affecting so many families, including the one that lived in the house that once stood here on this lot. You can see that family, like so many others, still working to rebuild and find their new normal a year later.
Where these mounds of dirt and puddles now lay in this North Harris County neighborhood, a house once stood that provided shelter for a family for more than a decade. That is until the night of May 16th, 2024, when the derecho blew in.
The house was completely destroyed. They had put the fire out already, but everything was ashes.
We first met Harris County Deputy Augustine Ariano last year. In true hero fashion, the night of the storm, he was on duty saving a woman's life, unaware that at that very moment, a large tree from a neighbor's yard had crashed into his home, sparking a fire with his wife and 3 children inside. They made it out alive, but they've been forever changed.
For them, 100%, they have post-traumatic stress from it. Just being in it. Every little storm that came through, not even rain, just heavy winds, they're affected by it.
The Arianos lost everything except the clothes on their backs and their determination.
I remember you said, no, we are going to rebuild here. We're going to find a way. We're going to rebuild here.
Yeah, like I said, the storm and the tree, they took our house, they didn't take our home.
We met Daniel Lopez in the Heights following the storm.
Kind of like a war zone, I guess. You know, it wasn't only trees, it was just roofing debris everywhere. Man, it was just a lot. It's chaotic, that's what it was.
In arguably the hardest hit area, I found Lopez and his 5 sons busy cutting a massive tree off a neighbor's home.
Look, make sure you get all these right here.
A neighbor who they had never even met.
Community coming out, there's people coming up to us like, oh man, thanks for helping and stuff like that, you know. It was a real proud moment.
And while the storm came to destroy, it turns out it also forged community in its wake.
I'm usually keep to myself, and that day, I met neighbors I had never met before, and everybody just came together, and you know, we were having a good time helping out.
As for Deputy Ariano and his family, he tells me that their new house is expected to be completed by the holiday season so they can stay right here in this community that stood for them in the difficult times. I'll send it back to you.
What a story, and look at the impact. Tracin, thank you. We have extensive coverage from the derecho and recovery efforts that followed right here on KHOU 11+. For all of us at KHOU 11, I'm Jacob Rascone. Thank you for watching.